Hello everyone, nubkeks here, welcome back to Nub Raids, bringing you a quick video today just to tell you about two champions that are being boosted in a 10 times event that is starting tomorrow, January 4th, to coincide with the Clan v Clan tournament. Do bear in mind we have a 2-time Sacred Shard event happening this weekend, so starting on Friday. Should be double chances to pull legendaries from Sacreds. Yeah, as you know, if you saw my shard pulling video from yesterday, for me, free to play, I recommend either saving up all your Sacreds to max out a Summon Rush event every couple of months if you can, if you're clearing Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss. Otherwise, you know, pulling in 2 times events is usually the go-to. I'd only be pulling in this event if you're a bigger spender, right? If you're a bigger spender, but there's some pretty cool champions nonetheless. And if you, alternatively, if you're free to play but you're in your pity timer, you know that you're due to get a legendary, you've got very good boosted chance, it might be worth pulling as well, because we got a couple very good champions. The first one is Cecilia Flametongue with the Demon Spawn faction. She's a Force Affinity attack-based legendary champion. Extremely good champion. Her A1, Towering Inferno, attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit, when booked, has a 30% chance of increasing the duration of HP burn debuffs on the target by 1 turn. Pretty solid, a 3-hitter A1. Her A2, Flame Eruption, 3-turn cooldown when booked, that attacks all enemies, 100% chance when booked of placing Weaken debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 100% chance of placing Decreased Defense debuff for 2 turns if there are at least 2 enemies under HP burn debuffs. On top of that, it will then instantly activate any HP burn debuffs on every single target and then decrease the duration of those HP burn debuffs by 1 turn. So this move is insane. AoE weaken, AoE decrease defense, insanely good, and then just making all HP burn debuffs activate instantly. This is like the spider dungeon. She's the spider dungeon goddess, right? Because you just activate all the HP burn debuffs and all the spiderlings, and you just nuke the boss with that. Then her A3, Firestorm Right, 4-turn cooldown when booked, puts HP burn debuff on her, Sicia, for 3 turns, then does an AoE attack, and then when booked has a 100% chance of putting HP burn debuff on all enemies for 3 turns, and then also gives an extra turn if the HP burn debuff is placed on all enemies. On top of that, Metaphysics, her passive, increases her speed by 3 and damage by 3% for every ally and enemy under HP burn debuffs. And if Cardial, who's a Void legendary in the Sacred Order, if he's on the same team, allies will be healed from HP burn debuffs instead of taking damage from HP burn debuffs. And then she also has a 60 accuracy in all battles. Her base stats are okay. She's got really good attack. Her HP's pretty low. She's got good defense for an attack-based champion. A little bit slow, bit of accuracy and resist. So pretty standard all around. But yeah, and she also looks probably the coolest looking champion in the entire game. Like, she looks freaking amazing. Again, you see the reviews. Spider, Faction Wars are the 2 big areas she shines. Also Hydra, you know, bringing AoE HP burn, decreased defense, weaken, and popping those HP burns on Hydra should be very strong there. So very, very strong in some key areas of the game. I don't have her to show you her in action, but if we jump over to Spider real fast, if we look at Spider 25, something worth considering, if we look at the top teams, she's going to be in these top teams. We got 2 Cecilias in the top team, merely pull 3 Cecilias during this ×10 event, and you too could have an extremely fast team. Cecilia's there. There's 1 team without Cecilia, another team with 3, so she's showing up in most of these Spider teams. Like, she's super good here. I mean, bear in mind, I check out my champion guide for Akoth the Seared. You know, I've got I'm clearing the Spider in like 40 to 50 seconds with a budget team there, so do bear that in mind. You know, speed is great, but that might be fast enough without needing to pull her. But she is obviously extremely good and super fun. Then the other champion that's boosted, so she's boosted 10 times from from Sacred and from Ancient Shards. So if you're close to your pity timer, or not close, if you're well into your pity timer on any of those, might be worth pulling. Otherwise, if you're a low spender or free to play, even a medium spender, I'd probably steer clear. But the whales will be happy for sure. And then the other champion, boosted in Void Shards, 10 times chance to pull Tormund the Cold. I have Tormin. I'll show you him in action. Tormin's extremely good as well. His A1 Rhyme Fire is an AoE, which when booked has a 25% chance of placing freeze debuff for 1 turn. And this is really fun. I'll show you this in action. Instantly, he'll just automatically do an A1 attack whenever an enemy who's frozen and has HP burn takes damage from their HP burn, right? Then he'll automatically do an A1. So obviously, he and Sicia would combo together extremely well. His A2, then Iceberg Crush, 3-turn cooldown when booked, removes all buffs from target enemy, then attacks them 2 times, steals their buffs instead if they're under freeze, ignores defense if they're under freeze and HP burn, damage based on defense, he's a defense-based damage dealer. His A3 then, 4-turn cooldown, Blizzard Rage, attacks all enemies, puts block debuffs and heal reduction debuff for 2 turns if the enemies are under freeze. He has a 60% chance to provoke if they're not under freeze, and it will also decrease the cooldown of 1 random skill of each ally by 1 turn for every enemy attack that's under both a freeze and a HP burn debuff, and the damage is based on defense. Then the thing that makes it, you probably know him the best for, especially in Arena, is Wintry Wind. This is his passive. So number 1 has a passive effect, which is a 20% chance of putting freeze debuff that books up to 30% chance to freeze each enemy whenever they have their turn meter filled or whenever they receive a buff, and it applies twice per enemy turn, once whenever they get a buff and then once for any turn meter fill. So for example, in Arena, Arbiter goes in, does what is it, Mentor of Heroes or something? She increases attack on everyone and fills their turn meter. That gives you 2 30% chances to freeze. With Masteries, you can make that 2 35% chances to freeze. In other words, basically a 70% chance roughly to freeze every champion individually on the enemy team whenever Arbiter boosts their turn meter when she does that move, which is insanely good. Super good. And yeah, then he also has an active effect that when he's killed on a 6-turn cooldown when booked, it will revive him to 100% HP with a freeze debuff on him. He also brings you 33% defense in all battles, which is really solid as well. He's got great base stats, tons of health, really high defense as well. He's slow, mind you. He also has tons of resist because he's a dwarf. And you can build him in 2 sort of ways. Cecilia, you're really building Cecilia as a debuffer. You could build her as a nuker either, or as well. Tormund, you can build him to be tanky, which I do. Or you could build him to nuke. Put him in like Savage with defensive stuff and build him as a bit of a nuker. I have mine. I'll show you mine, and I'll show you him in action really fast. My Tormund, I have him masteried up. The key mastery here is Fearsome Presence, which increases your chance of landing freeze by 5%. Also provoke from artifacts by 5%, and I have him in a taunting set, so he's a 35% chance to provoke on top of his normal stuff to freeze, and I have him in counterattack masteries as well. Yeah, I have him just built reasonably fast and okay tankiness with crit rates, and yeah, just sort of a bit of a general build. But I use him for Arena, or I'll show you him in action. We're not super high into Doom Tower yet. We just had the reset, but I've got a fun little freeze team here. I'll show you this in action, which I think is just hilarious. This is one of my favorite Doom Tower teams. Obviously, it's a pay-to-win team in the sense that I was lucky enough to pull a Tormin. But we have basically Achak is going to come in with an AoE freeze. Lydia's going to put AoE decrease defense and weaken. Obviously, in this situation, Sicia will be way better in this team. Ninja's going to come in and burn people, also be applying AoE freeze. And then we have our boy Yoshi actually in the lead, who's going to up Ninja's damage at increased attack. Also going to up our accuracy, because I don't have enough accuracy for the maximum Doom Tower floor levels on these champions. So he helps us to actually land our T-buffs to increase accuracy. He puts AoE fear, and he also does burns as well and decrease accuracy. But you can see what happens here. Look at Tormund. I've been talking about Tormund. Right? We've got freezes and burns on all these guys. So Tormund's going to get a whole bunch of different extra turns, right? Whenever anyone that's frozen and burned takes a turn, Tormund's going to A1 them. And his A1 can also freeze. It can also provoke because he's in the taunting set. Let's see if we can watch him in this wave. But yeah, Tormund's hilarious. Tormund's great. He'll do tons of damage. Let's see how he goes. He's provoked everyone there. Look at him go. Let's get some freezes out. Come on. Achak, maybe? No. Ninja? They're thinking about it. They're not quite there yet. This is obviously a low Doom Tower wave, so it's not going to be that effective. You know, these guys are going to be dying pretty quickly. Here goes Tormund. There he goes. He got an extra A1 in there just for fun. Here he goes. He's doing his normal turn. Unfortunately, we've been unlucky with the freezes and the burns here. Come on, guys. Where are we at with those? Okay, we got a burn on this guy. Nah, he got killed. Okay, but you can see that Tormund, hopefully in the next wave, he's going to be taking a whole bunch of turns. And this is a super fun team. It's actually very viable for most of Doom Tower, right? Because not only are you killing things like ninjas doing tons of damage on these waves, but you're locking them down with freezes, provokes from Tormund, and you're actually killing these waves pretty quickly. So this is viable for a lot of Doom Tower waves. The only two sort of waves that has difficulty with that I found are waves with what's her name in it, Dark Elhain, who whenever you freeze her, she instantly removes the freeze and attacks you with an AoE hit. So this obviously doesn't work against her. There's Dark Elhain waves, and it also struggles against some of the Sifi waves. But other than that, it works really well. It's just super fun. It's super fun. So I use this actually for some waves instead of my seer team. Obviously, my seer team is what I normally use at these lower levels. It's better. But yeah, you can sort of see the gist there. And with all of his counterattacks and his AoE hits, Tormund actually does pretty good damage. Just he's going to be spamming those AoEs like nuts. So quite fun. But there you go, guys. That was kind of a quick look at the upcoming event. Again, my recommendation, honestly, is to not pull during this event. Unless you are a mega whale, I would not pull. I wouldn't. You're better off saving Void. In my opinion, you're better saving Void Shards for 2x events. To get as many Void Champions as you possibly can that are good, because they're crucial and really hard to get. And I recommend saving up your Sacreds to max out a Summon Rush, or again go in a 2x event. But again, if you're in your Mercy timer and you know you've got a really high boosted chance, might be worthwhile. But there you go. They're the champions. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.